Well, it's time to look at the papers, and with us to review them is a former editor of the Daily Star. It's Dawn Neeson. Great to have you in the studio, Dawn.
It's brilliant. It's so exciting.
And UK editor of The Big Issue, that's Paul McNamee. Paul, morning to you. So, let's delve in now. Paul, you've picked out a Times article, and this is all about how the cost of living crisis is basically making people who had retired, getting them back into the job for taking up jobs because they can't afford, I suppose, the cost of living, essentially.
Yes. When we look at cost of living, how it impacts people, frequently the impact on younger people, young families, is highlighted. They're right at the sharp end of it. But this report that the Times is talking about from Age UK looks at the other end of the people who have either retired or about to retire. And because, as you've said, because of the cost of living, particularly it seems around heating bills last winter, are having to go back into the labour market. And some of the numbers should bear it up. 9 months ago, there were 1.196 million people under 65 who'd retired. Now that number is down to 1.075 million. So about 100,000 people who it looks like have potentially gone back into the labour market because they've got no other means of sustaining themselves. Cost of living's gone higher. Pensions are not meeting the demands that inflation are placing on households, so people are having to go back. And I suppose you could, there's two sides to this. On the one, this is very difficult for people who have worked their entire life, we're looking forward to some kind of retirement, and perhaps have challenges with health that come when you're older. So it means that they're not able to necessarily go back in full time. But on the other hand, I suppose you could say that there are positive impacts of work, both for your mental health, for social reasons, and for a number of other things. But if you are somebody who's a carer, for instance, this just puts more demands on you. And I suppose it stops the idea of a positive retirement.
Yeah, that's it. And the charity quoting a person saying the only time the family put on the heating was last winter at Christmas. And thinking about that early part of the year, it was freezing, wasn't it? Yeah, that's a tough one for many people who wanted to enjoy retirement. So, Dawn, let's talk about your story. This is inside the Telegraph. And this is a COVID unit.
Well, this is...
Recording MPs.
I found this utterly shocking, Leah. This is about a Labour MP called Belle Ribeiro Abbey, and she submitted a subject access request to the counter disinformation unit. They were set up. They're set up before COVID to monitor domestic and foreign threats to, security in this country. But they also ended up monitoring what people were saying about COVID. Obviously the conspiracy theories and things like that, I accept. But this lady, she simply asked Matt Hancock, who was Health Secretary at the time, what the plans were for the COVID vaccination for people with learning disabilities. That was all she asked, which is, for disabled people, basically, how are we going to look after them? Simple point that you would have thought needed answering. And for that, she's discovered that she was monitored. Now, the government deny this was the case, but she was monitored. Her interests were monitored, the fact that she had interest in disabilities and cancer and care working. And her interests were monitored, and her social media were monitored, because she simply asked how disabled people were going to be cared for in the vaccine rollout.
Of course.
I find it actually quite terrifying, I must admit.
The government's saying, they haven't monitored anyone's activity or any individual, but we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
Paul, we all know the weather is a big story. We need sun cream, that's bottom line. But The Guardian, on page 9, are saying, talking about how dermatologists are saying that sunscreen should be free for the poorest in society, because it is pricey. You go into any kind of high street store, you're talking a minimum of £6-7.
That's right. I mean, this is interesting because the previous story I looked at was about income and climate and how that was impacting people's how they live. This is the other side of it. This is extreme heat rather than extreme cold. But you're right. according to this, and this comes from the British Association of Dermatologists and other people involved with care, it's around $6.50 a bottle on average for sun cream, particularly high factor. And the British Association of Dermatologists have said that this is a vital piece of the jigsaw fighting the rise in cancer, melanomas particularly. So they are calling for a suspension of VAT on sunscreen, and others have gone further, saying, well, look, we just need to provide it for those who are on lowest incomes free. There's been a push for this for a couple of years. Going back, there was a celebrity push last year asking for some way to make sure that people can get access to this for free when they need it. The Hygiene Bank, who are an organisation who work with a lot of food banks, have been collecting early part of this year to make sure that they can get sunscreen into food banks, so if people need it, they can go and get it. But obviously, it's not a perfect solution, and people are going to need it more. It is nice outside in the sun, but we do need to provide protection. And a big issue, in fact, we found that this is a problem for our vendors, because when they go out and they're trying to make a living by selling the magazine on the street, they need protection as well. So we have tried to get them as much sunscreen as we can. They're the people who buy from them have also provided, but it's a very real and a very live issue at present.
Okay. On the other side of this, Dawn, page 4 of The Sun, be keen to get your thoughts on the layout and the headline here.
Yeah,
Law and Order.
It's
you approve?
Yeah, it's a fun tabloid headline, isn't it? It's what The Sun are put on earth to do, but it's not such a funny story. For 2 million people in this country, it's the Great British Summer, obviously. After the one of the wettest marches in England and Wales since 1981, we have the earliest summer hosepipe ban in this country for 11 years. I know. So this is Kent and Sussex now are going to be hosepipe ban from June the 26th. That's 580,000 people. Already added to the 1 million people in Cornwall and Devon.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because someone did tweet me and said, hang on a second, down in Cornwall, we've had one for some time now.
A whole year, Leah. They've been under one for a whole year. So, I mean, summer doesn't even officially start until next week, by the way. So it's quite astonishing. South East Water have instigated the latest ban, the Boss, who's only on £307,000 a year. And so basically, you know, how much of this is mismanagement by the water companies, who, by the way, made $2.8 billion in profits in 2021 alone? Leah, they've got one job: get clean water to us, take dirty water away. And they still can't manage it, can they? And that's why, you know, how many leaks are losing this water?
Potholes and leaks.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, yes. So good luck, everyone out there, if you want to use your hose pipe.
OK. Lastly, briefly, Paul, how fast are you on the Rubik's Cube?
This story is remarkable. The only way I was ever able to do a Rubik's Cube was taking stickers off and place it back on.
Oh, you cheat.
That's cheating!
I know. That's how fast I am. Not very fast. But this guy, 21-year-old Max Park, 3.13 seconds.
Oh, wow.
3.13 seconds to do a Rubik's Cube.
Honestly, that is incredible. We'll leave it there for now, guys. Thank you so much